We want to show the real side of small business, the true small business life. There are a lot of misconceptions about small business, and we want to give you a glimpse into the real life of a small business owner. The highs, the lows, the failures, the successes, the full small business life story, so that you too can know that you are not alone on your small business journey, and so that you can see the journey that many other small business owners have taken themselves. Remember to like, share, and comment so that many others can share in this small business life story. Hello, and thank y'all for joining us again today here at the McGraw Council. We're honored and blessed to have Laura with the Madison Rivergate Area Chamber of Commerce. How are you doing today, Laura?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are things going in your neck of the woods out in Tennessee?
Oh goodness, just dealing with this pandemic that never ends and um dealing with all our booming economy. We're right outside of Nashville. We're only 9 miles from downtown, and it's it's a good time to be in the chamber business, but it's also a very busy time to
Oh,
be
yes,
in
especially when you
business.
have a successful metro like that that's growing so
Mhm.
quickly. Everything kind of starts stacking on top of each other. The way I like to describe it,
Mhm.
it's like everything's really good. It's just a lot of volume right now.
Yes. Oh, yeah, the work never ends, which is wonderful job security, but, you know,
Absolutely, it's
sometimes
just a
you take a
lot.
breather.
Exactly, exactly. Well, one of the reasons why we're so excited today, obviously with your current work at the Chamber of Commerce and your background in psychology, we're going to be talking about customer journey mapping today. And I think you'll have some really good perspectives as we kind of dive into these different processes. I'm going to go ahead and pull up our presentation, but yeah, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing your background a little bit in that regard, I think it would
Sure.
really give a lot of people some excitement about what we're about to discuss.
Yeah, so, my undergraduate degree, I decided it'd be a great idea to double major and do a minor. So I was in public relations as well as psychology as my majors with a business minor, none of which were in the same college, so my advisors thought I was crazy. But that combinations worked really well for me, because it has helped me, be able to beyond being, tactful and knowing how to present the business, and having the business minor, the psychology part has really helped me understand how to work with clients and how to work with customers, um, for different personalities, different motivations. So it's really helped smooth that over.
And that's absolutely talk about incredible experience. It's like super applicable in small business. I mean, for
Mhm.
those of you listening, you can see why we were so excited. We're like, yes, this is absolutely a guest we have to have on and kind of talk about some of the customer journey mapping stuff. And I think that's why we always like to kind of start off the discussion here. What is customer journey mapping? Why is it important? Laura, as I'm sure you know, it's very much of a common corporate tool, but it hasn't really made its way into the small business economy yet, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so that the idea here is that you're able to understand the psychology behind the customer's mindset from prospect to where they've never heard of you before to where they really become a strong advocate because that's what we want. That's the individual who is, or business, if you're a B2B, that's 100% behind your back. They're telling everyone, they're shouting from the rooftop, so to speak. You need those advocates in your business. And when you go through this process, you can understand if you take the time and do it right, the psychology that kind of goes in behind it. And this is something, again, I would love your input for what you see out in Tennessee. There have been a few very interesting statistics that we found. LGE is a consulting firm out in California, and what they found is for the first time in our American economy, we're a 6G economy. There are six generations proactively participating in it, which means there's a lot of opportunity, but you need to be really focused in your marketing efforts. Yes,
Mhm.
you can have a wide net for sure, but I mean, this might be something you could speak to on the psychology of each different generation. I remember one presentation we had at a Chamber of Commerce about 2 years ago, right before COVID hit, and what was important to each generation differed. And that's not a bad thing, but when you understand that, it can really position your company for the better.
Well, I can kind of give an anecdotal answer to that just from what we're seeing here right now. So we have had a specific area in our town that my chamber covers where we've had several restaurants closing. I won't name any names, but they're national chains, and we've had to work on explaining to the community that this is not a sign of that area, you know, becoming worse or not thriving,
Exactly.
that this is actually a national issue. It's not just our area, that these chains are actually closing tons and tons of restaurants across the US because they haven't kept up with what their consumers want.
Ex
So a lot of those restaurants, and it's not just restaurants, it's retail, it's all kinds of businesses right now. If you're not keeping up with what your current generation with disposable income wants, you're gonna fall by the wayside. So it used to be enough to have a gimmick. So, there we've all seen Office Space and other fun movies like that. Like, it used to be enough to wear your suspenders and have buttons all over them, and that was the personality of your restaurant. But that's not what appeals to customers today.
Mhm.
So we've gone from accepting just there's a gimmick, whether it's the decor or whether it's, how people dress, and now consumers are wanting meaning. So these younger generations, even starting with millennials and down into Gen Z, um, they're more interested in a story. They're more interested in supporting people. They're really purpose driven rather than
Right.
gimmick driven. So a
It
lot of the companies that they are supporting have either a charitable cause that they also support, whether like Tom's. Tom's is a great example, buy one, give one, where they are helping solve something. And you see, I heard a commercial for Pros um, hair care recently, and they are really pushing the fact that they are a carbon neutral B Corp.
Mhm.
And they're trying to help get rid of, you know, as much pollution as they can. I heard another ad recently for a new water line that comes in an aluminum can because aluminum is profitable to recycle and plastic is not. Most of the
Right.
plastic, even that we put in recycling, goes into a landfill. And so they also give a portion of their proceeds to help fight plastic pollution. So a lot of newer companies are really understanding that, and some of the, older companies that haven't realized that that's what's driving consumerism now for the younger generations that have more disposable income, that are more interested in learning about new companies. Um, if you haven't figured that out, you're starting to slow down.
And you hit on so many good points there. We had a few other statistics about, how it's going digital, but I wanna kinda gloss over those just really briefly. It's on the screen, but I wanna jump ahead to the next slide because you just hit on, like, the one of the most important things in the customer journey map. You have to know who your target audience is. You have to
Mhm,
know who they are, what's important to them. The more info you have about them, the better, and obviously, that's where you gotta watch, the privacy things,
mhm,
online tracking, so on and so forth. You gotta have a good privacy policy. But the more you know about your ideal customer, the more you're going to know how to communicate with them, when to communicate with them, how to shape your message to the point where it's received the way it's intended to be
mhm.
communicated. And that's again where the psychology background that you have comes into play massively, because once you understand who your target audience is and what they're looking for, then you'll have a better understanding of how to communicate with them.
Absolutely, and even more so, what motivates them? What is that
Absolutely.
tipping point from, "I'm interested in your company," to, "I am buying a product and trying it," and even more so into, "I'm a loyal customer."
Absolutely, man. You were just, like, leading off the presentation perfectly. That's just like this is just, like, too easy. So that's actually perfect. Again, perfect phase. Thank you for teeing that up.
You're
There
welcome.
there's it's a very much of a sequence process. You have to work with the customer or prospect because they're not a customer at this point in time. They don't even know you exist, and I think this is something a lot of people get wrong when they blend marketing and sales into one silo. They're
Mhm,
two distinctly different things. Marketing is all about generating that awareness and the initial consideration. At step 3, then it really becomes more of a sales process, and that's,
mhm,
again, distinctly different. So we're gonna spend some time on the, next several slides going through each of these different steps, But as you think for the audience listening, as you think about your ideal customer, the people that you serve, that you can serve, that you want to ideally serve, think about this 5 stage process. And we'll go through them in detail. But how do you generate awareness? How do you get them to kind of consider you initially? How do you get them to get serious about it? How do you get them across the finish line? And then how do you make sure they keep coming back? And that goes right into the awareness discussion. And again, Laura, you can speak to this in depth, especially with your chamber experience. When a small business starts the marketing campaign, it always has to start with generating awareness because at that point in time, most people don't even know the business exists. And that's a normal problem. It's a big one to overcome, but it's a normal problem. And that's where once you know your target audience, you'll know how to reach them. For example, I mean, I'm sure you see this in the chamber out the Madison Rivergate area. Networking is a very powerful thing, regardless of what industry you're in, whether you're in restaurant and retail or you're in website building and marketing or financial advising. Networking is huge. But when you know your target audience, you'll know where to spend your time and resources.
Mhm. So, I have a particular company in our chamber in mind that, probably use them as an example, like, step by step as we go through here. Um It's called Sidekicks Cafe. It's a local coffee shop, but they also do breakfast and lunch. They are not open for dinner. So they don't have that dinner crowd there because they want to make sure that their employees and everybody has time to go home and have dinner with their families and, have those evenings off. So they came in with a very strong idea of who they want to be as a company, which first off is so important. You have to know what your values are as a company and what is going to support those, whether it's the hours that you work, the clients or customers that you're trying to attract. All of that works together. So having that strong vision even before you start this is so important. So they had that strong vision. They knew who they were. They knew who they wanted to be and what would support that. So
Exactly.
when they started trying to tell people about their company, which again, local business, they started renovating the building they were gonna be in, and they were living in it while they were renovating it, like, it was really ground up, um, but they started even before they opened by going and visiting with the neighbors. So they would take, some of their coffee and one of their baked goods, and they would go door to door in their neighborhood because they were moving into a heavily residential area, as you might want to as a small cafe. And they went door to door and they got to know their neighbors.
There's
So word of mouth marketing, as much as social media marketing can get people to click and all of this stuff, word of mouth is still king.
absolutely. And I think you bring up a great point too. Another misunderstanding in social media shouldn't be, especially for small business, just use it like a pay-per-click thing. What you want to do is
Mhm.
generate digital word of mouth. You want to
Right.
generate that discussion online. You're never going to beat face-to-face interaction. That's the top form of communication.
Mhm.
However, if you're able to leverage your social media and get it to generate that word of mouth discussion, now you're using it correctly. But again, I think another point I just like to hit on really quickly, there's no shortcut to success. It's going to take time and it's going to take a lot of hard work, literally, in some cases, going door to door. But I'm sure they're
Mhm.
off to a great start.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is, years ago that they started that, so I'm just gonna use them as an example as we go along, but that's how they started generating awareness in their area was giving that product and walking around and telling people, "We care, we wanna be part of the community, this is who we are. Please try our product for free right now in your own home." So it was I've never met anybody else who's done something like that, and it really helped with this early adoption of this company into the neighborhood because they thought, "Wow, these people really want to be involved in our neighborhood. They don't wanna just come in and take our money. They wanna
Mhm.
be a part of us."
Exactly, part of the community, and I think that's
Mhm,
part of the whole, moving them through the process, then you get them to
mhm,
become aware that you even exist, then you get them to, actually considering it. If it
mhm.
smells really good, it looks really good, they're probably gonna try it, right?
Yeah,
And so I
especially if
think
it's
it
free.
exactly, exactly, you get a good cup of coffee and a good whether it's a little cake or a cookie or a bagel, whatever it
Mhm,
might be, having that good opportunity to test it out for that type of industry, for that type of model, it's an excellent way to go through the process.
Mhm.
Again, going back to the beginning, like you said, they knew who their audience was. They knew where they were. They knew them inside and out so that they could go door to door and they knew when they were going to be home, so on
Mhm.
and so forth. And it just painted that perfect first impression, which is huge. I mean,
Absolutely.
you only get one chance to make a first impression, which is why that awareness piece is so part, because if you make a good impression, that initial consideration is much easier.
Yeah, and I'll give a digital example that's just from me scrolling through social media and my thought process. So if I scroll through and I see an ad that looks, like interesting, it kind of catches my eye at first, like it has an interesting visual, that stops me and I might unclick that mute button to listen to what's going
Absolutely.
on. So, that the quirkiness and, something that shows the personality of the company is what gives me that initial consideration, but it doesn't make me do anything but stop and listen to it for a few seconds. So
Exactly.
we'll talk about what makes me go further when we get further into the.
Let's go ahead and jump the
Yeah.
gun. Let's just head right there because I think providing such a really good pragmatic example. I want everyone to kind of track the discussion because the other thing you mentioned on that last slide, the reason you unmute is it's an emotional reason, and that's not a bad thing at all. We make decisions emotionally. I'll never forget.
Mhm.
I was talking to a friend a couple years ago, and they're like, every purchase is an emotional decision. And I sat back and I was like, now wait a minute. I go through every, he was like, all right, tell me when you go to the grocery store, do you get what's healthy for you or what sounds good? I'm like, darn it, you got me. And so that's the point when you're getting these marketing campaigns going. Yes, it
Mhm.
needs to make logical sense, but it needs to have good, strong emotional appeal. It needs to make the customer feel good about it, or the
And
prospect feel good about it.
especially, like, looking particularly at social media marketing, that visual is so important. That is a visual medium. So,
Absolutely.
I print ads are great for what they are, and that's a different discussion, and a strong print ad can really, get people to be aware and look more into it. But particularly for social media, video is so important. Um, all of the sponsored ads that I see as I'm scrolling through, they're all video.
It's
Um,
definitely the latest trend, and they've got a lot of
mhm,
great data on it. And to your
and it
point
catches
about
your eye.
E exactly, and to your point about, print materials and, mailers, that type of thing, it comes down to knowing your audience. If
Mhm.
your audience wants to receive a mailer, send them a mailer. If
Yeah.
your audience is on Instagram or YouTube, that's probably where you wanna be spending your main chunk of marketing dollars.
Mhm.
But once you again, that's why it all goes back to that knowing who your customer is, then you can
Yeah.
know where they are emotionally and psychologically, and you can supply them that emotion that they're looking for. Maybe it's
Mhm.
joy, maybe it's relief, maybe it's relaxing, or whatever it might be. You can fill that gap, you can fulfill that need. That builds credibility, that builds trust.
Yeah, and, that's a good, little plug for another topic of story branding, because you definitely need to get into that to do that successful, campaign of who you are and creating that beyond, just a, "Here's our values," into a story that attracts customers that they wanna interact with.
Absolutely. It needs to have true meaning and it needs to be consistent. It's interesting. We actually
Mhm.
had a presentation on this about 7 months ago, I think it was, about alignment in using, story marketing, so to speak.
Mhm.
If the story doesn't align with the founding or purpose of the business, you got a problem. And it's
Right.
one of those easily overlooked things, and you don't really see it until it's already too late. And you're like, whoa. So take your time, make sure your story is right. Yeah, it should all feed from a passion, which is what small business is all about, which is why we all love it, which
Mhm.
is why, again, joining a chamber, joining your community, and really getting connected is so powerful when you know how to leverage it.
And that's, just how we run our chamber in general is, that alignment whenever, lots of opportunities come up. There's no, lack of work. There's no lack of people wanting to chat. There's no lack of people wanting to get involved in the community, especially when you're, blessed enough to be beside this booming economy. Um, but what we've had to do is start really looking at every individual situation and saying, does this fit with what
Mhm.
we're trying to do for our community? So staying true to that message after you've established it is also just as important. You can't just say, oh, we want to project that this is what we are. You've got to walk the walk as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that kind of, takes us into that next big punch, so to speak, that purchase decision, that magical moment where money actually moves. I think
Mhm.
one of the biggest things here, and I would love your input with your psychology background. I think earning trust is the biggest thing here. I think
Yeah.
at this point in the process, they know what you offer. They know who you are. You're in the running for that final purchase, whether it's, what are we eating for lunch, or who do we use for our bank, or whatever it might be, whether it be
Mhm.
minuscule or huge. It's about trust. I think this is the stage, again, based on data, where they are going to be reaching out to confirm your testimonials, maybe get some references, or if it's a small ticket item, a $5 discount for lunch or something might go a long way too.
Mhm.
But knowing your customer, knowing your industry, and like you said, knowing your story, then you can match it up much, much better.
So for sidekicks, for example, they, like I said, they went door to door. They were smart enough to bring a sample of the product with them, so they've gotten a little taste of it. They've told them what they're about, and now once the doors are open, getting them in the doors, for them, it was making sure that the feeling of their cafe matched what they presented. And so whether that's, that can go down to the decor matching the what you said it was gonna be, making sure that it's comfortable and feels friendly, like you want people to stay, like, that could be how you set up your line, that it's not
Mhm.
just, like, quick like a McDonald's, that it's something that you interact and you have, they have this huge chalkboard menu with it's all different colors and, like, handwritten instead of printed, so they really put the thought into the design of that customer experience when they walk in, so that they want to stay and buy something and sit down and enjoy it and take in the atmosphere. So for a restaurant, it can be as simple as thoughtful design. Think about what you like. What if you were a customer and you were walking in, would you feel rushed? Would you feel welcomed? Um, but if you're selling a product, let's move into a different area. So we'll continue with when I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see a video ad that visually catches my interest and I unmute and I start listening, and they might have a cute, funny commercial. The next thing I do is I click on the comments. I want to see what people are saying, and I'll if people are saying, "Oh, what a cute commercial," I'll scan past this. I wanna see what people are saying who have actually tried the product. So,
Exactly.
before I make that purchase decision, especially in a digital world where I can't touch it, I can't see it, I can't smell it, I'm just having to take their word for it, I want to see people interacting with that social media post who have actually purchased it. So that makes the decision for me, because sometimes I click on it and people are like, "It took 7 weeks to get here, and when it got
Right.
here, it smelled funny, and it didn't work for me." But then there have been other products that people have said, "Quick shipping, it was easy, it's exactly what they say it is, works perfectly, I would definitely buy it again." And those are the ones that make me then click on their website and go from social media to interacting with their website. So it gets me from the ad to the point where I can actually explore more of the options and start making that purchase decision.
Exactly. Exactly. I think you're stealing my thunder. Now, in all seriousness, you're hitting on all the points of the customer journey. And that's what the small business owner needs to really focus on, because you too often it's easy to fall into the lines of what do I need to think or accomplish here. Reality is, where's the customer and what do they need?
Mhm,
And I think after, if you've done all those things successfully and they purchased, and that puts you in the loyalty loop then. And this is tragically, it's a part of the customer journey process that
mhm,
is far too commonly overlooked. I believe the statistic is still at 7 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to retain an
mhm.
existing one. Just because you made the sale doesn't mean it's done. You need them to keep coming back, because you can cut off that awareness stage in the initial consideration stage. You can bring them right to either active consideration or even purchase decision if it's a smaller impact item. And it's tragic. Too many small businesses ignore this component when it's super easy, relatively speaking, to implement with a good CRM, with good word of mouth strategies built in, not just asking or not just relying on people to voluntarily talk about it, but incentivizing it, generating that discussion, both, in person locally as well as online in the digital space. There are
Mhm.
things that businesses can do. Those are just a few of them to really kick off this loyalty loop. And that's, something I would ask you with your background again. How can small businesses really leverage this component to get customers coming back again and again and again?
So you want to have that feeling of satisfaction when you get your product. And so whether that is like when I go to Sidekicks, I feel welcomed. They ask me how I've been. The first time you go in, they ask your name. They want to get to know you. So they create, and then the next time you come in, they try to remember your name, and they're like, "Oh, weren't it's nice to see you again." What they know that I like to mix my tea with half mango and half unsweet. So, and they're like, "Oh, we're low on mango tea, but we're gonna go get some real quick." And just getting to know your customers, because that was their entire model, was to be a neighborhood coffee shop. They don't want to be a Starbucks where you go through a drive-through
Churn
and
and
you
burn.
grab it and you just turn it. They want you to come in and spend your time. They ask me how my sister is, because my sister will go sit in this coffee shop. She's an author, and she'll sit there and write books. There a good chunk of her books have been written inside Kix Cafe. So they'll be like, "Oh, we haven't seen her in a while. How's she doing?" "Oh, she's traveling." So it's making sure you walk the walk. So if
Mhm.
you advertise yourself as, "We are part of the community, we care about our community," they interact with customers on that personal level, and then they get involved in other causes that their customers care about. So they want to support this particular business because they've walked the walk. They've given exactly what they said, and they've even gone above and beyond what they said they would do. So that's how Sidekicks has created a loyalty loop, and I see a lot of the same people in there all the time. So they've been very successful at that, and they've survived the pandemic, when they had to be closed for
Mhm.
a long time, and they couldn't invite you in, and they couldn't have you sit down and get to know you. People wanted to make sure that they could get back to that, so they ordered takeout, even though that's not really in line with the kind of business they are, and it's not what really keeps people coming back. They don't wanna be that fast food place. They don't wanna be a curbside pickup. They want that interaction, but people knew, if we wanna get back to that, we've gotta support them now. And they were willing to take the product without the selling point to make sure they could have it again later. And that's some real loyalty.
Absolutely, and when you think about it, it all started with, I'm craving a tea or a coffee or whatever, so I'll try a local business to support me, a couple of bucks. You've spent more than a couple of bucks, is my guess, over the last several years going there. That's the idea of the loyalty loop. One
Mhm.
good experience with good follow-up and good interaction and engagement has led to continual repurchase, 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 and you're probably an advocate of them. Probably you are, because you're even
Absolutely.
promoting them right here and right now. That is what a good customer journey map does. When you have it mapped out, you know what you need to do, you know who you need to serve, and then the activities that you act upon to go from "I've never heard of them. Who are they?" to "They're the absolutely greatest things since sliced bread." I mean,
Yeah.
that is it. That is the customer journey map to a T.
Oh, and they've done it so well that for me personally, you know, I I've actually taken a lot of clients there. I like to have initial meetings there because it's a very comfortable atmosphere. Instead of inviting them to my office, I'll say, "Hey, have you ever been to Sidekicks?" No. Okay, you want to get to know the area? This is a great example of what works in our area. Let's go. Let's have a cup of coffee. Let's have lunch. And it's a relaxed atmosphere where they feel comfortable opening up faster, and then they're like, "Wow, this is great." And that creates another customer for them because
Mhm.
their loyal customers are bringing other people there. And what has also helped them is, again, walking the walk. The owner was a part of our board for years. So she wanted to get so involved with the community that she then steps out of her very busy business to volunteer her time with local organizations. For us, it was the chamber. It could be any nonprofit that fits in with your model, but showing that you're not just willing to, handing over a check is great. Not disparaging that. If you
Right.
don't have the time, please hand over the checks to your local nonprofits that fit in, but because that's another psychological aspect. They are giving, they support the community. By me supporting them, I'm also supporting a nonprofit. I'm getting uh dual use out of my money here.
Right.
But she also was willing to give her time when she didn't have much of it. And so that really has made everybody in our chamber super loyal, and they get lots of catering gigs out of it. It's yeah, we're all very loyal to sidekicks over here.
And it's the whole Zig Ziglar philosophy, personified in that example.
Mhm.
You get anything you want in life if you're just willing to help enough people get what they want. And it's
Yeah.
true. You have to give first and then you get. And that's something we always like to do at the McGraw Council. We always like to finish with those kind of action steps, so to speak. So it's like, if this is totally
Mhm.
uncharted waters and you learn something new, that's awesome. Here's how you put it to use. Build your customer profile first and foremost. You have to know who you're serving, not who you can serve, who your target is. Because
Yeah.
obviously, when you're
Want
talking, you exactly, exactly. You can serve a wide audience, but when you're spending marketing dollars, especially as a small business, it needs to be very targeted. So the more you know about that target customer, the better. Then map that customer's journey. One way you can do this, find 3 to 5 of your favorite customers and just have a simple coffee with them.
Yeah.
Just say ask kinda interview them a little bit, say, "Hey, how did you first hear about me? What made you wanna try it? What keeps you coming back?" Going into the psychology of it, it will reveal a lot about what makes you different in the marketplace in the eyes of the customer. The reason why that's significant is because that might be very different than what you perceive. Again, that's not a good,
Mhm.
bad, or indifferent thing, but it's knowledge, and it's knowledge
Yeah.
that you can harness and use for your business. And then finally, know your triggers. Once you go through this process, you'll know, or should know, which triggers push customers through that process, whether it's, that excitement or trust or that good positive experience, whatever it might be. Taking the time to go through these 3 steps, it helps a lot. And definitely
Mhm.
it is a time commitment, but it's part of being a business owner. No one is going to do it better than you, especially early on. As you grow, you can start to outsource these things, but you cannot wait because it's costing you time, it's costing you money, and it's causing you headache, all of which can be avoided.
Absolutely. And, I'll give one quick example about a company that, I am a loyal customer of, that's not in my community, that I see online. They're based in California. And they're not giving me anything for saying this. I can tell you that right now. So Hammett is a wonderful purse company out of California. It's a smaller group. They advertise as, it's high end, but it's not like a big, huge designer name. It's not like a Gucci or something that's, pumping out um, tons of product. But they focus in very like a very distinct style that's a clean, um, luxurious leather, clean lines, but very interesting lines. So they know that they want their customer to be a little bit edgy, but still appreciate classics. They want a product that's going to last a long time.
Yep,
And so their marketing is that you don't buy Hammett, you collect it.
brilliant.
So they have, like, only a certain number of models, really, like, of different shapes and styles, and they come out with different patterns and colors of leather, so that you don't you don't buy it, you collect it. So it's all these exclusive colors that are only there for a certain amount of time. And so when you decide to actually pull the trigger, because that they're going for a luxury market. They
Mhm,
know that
mhm.
that's what they want. They want repeat luxury market customers. And so it's an investment, but when you get it in the mail, it's pretty quick shipping, but you get it inside a very nice thick box has their label on it. You open that really thick box, which, if you're in your 30s, you can't throw away a good box. Like, ooh, no one expects that when you're growing up, that a good box you cannot get rid of. So you open up this nice box and it's got a note in an envelope thanking you for your order, and that envelope is printed with their name really nicely in a little bit of gold leaf. You open it up and it's thank you so much for supporting us. We give back to charity. We do this and then you have the nice unboxing experience where you're lifting the tissue paper and there's another note on there that says hello beautiful, and then you actually like take it out of the box and it's so nicely wrapped and you finally get to touch the leather, you get to touch the suede inside. But the even just opening the box, it was like opening a present.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like a gift to yourself. So that really plays into their luxury brand.
Mhm.
And then it's a high quality product that a lot of people have commented on. I get lots of compliments, and I was in my local Dillard's the other day, trying on some fall clothes, and the person at the counter said, "Is that a hammock?" Oh, I love them. Yeah, like, and so we had this, personal interaction about it because they have created such a strong brand and strong marketing that she recognized the purse that wasn't anywhere close to her. She couldn't see they don't do big labels or anything. You won't find anything that says Hammett really big across it or like a certain pattern.
Right.
But it's just the clean lines, the very specific styles. She knew that that was a Hammett, and then we talked about it and we had that personal interaction, and who knows, she may have gone and bought one after that. She was like, "Oh, I've really been interested in this." So that from the time I just saw an interesting picture online to that experience in the store, people asking me about it and me telling them, "Oh yeah, I love them. I have multiple of these purses. They're basically the only purse I carry now." That all went through with very thoughtful experiences. They thought from how are you gonna see it online to how does it feel when you get that package? How does it feel when you're first seeing it for that first moment of touching the product? And you know, that makes a huge difference, especially because they know, again, they wanna be in the luxury market. They didn't have to spend all that money on extra envelopes and really thick, nice boxes, and, they could have put it in a dust bag and put it in a cardboard box, but that's not their audience. They want their audience to have a certain experience that says luxury.
Exactly, and that's perfect alignment from first awareness all the way through the loyalty loop.
Mhm.
Laura, thank you so much for taking time today to kind of share your perspective on
Absolutely.
these things. It's definitely it brings to light and in perspective the difference or application of rather theory into the pragmatic small business world. Because I
Mhm.
think there are a lot of concerns when there's information going out there. It's like, well, that's cool theory. Here's what it looks like when it's actually practiced. It does work. Here's how you do it. And so you really help kind of bring a pragmatic impact. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you so much. I always enjoy talking about this kind of stuff, so
Absolutely. Absolutely. You stay safe, stay blessed, and we'll connect again soon.
you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.